This is Lesson Jack on Writing Uncensored, Episode 5, Outlining.
It's sleepy time in Mayberry.
It's good background music.
Yeah, it is.
It's funny. I have like 100 CDs and 100 albums, 50 cassettes, and a lot of them, it's stuff I bought from the time I was like 12 to the time I was like 30, and maybe 20 since then. But because at this point, so for the last 25 years, writing screenplays and plays and fiction, I use jazz and classical as background music because I didn't want to have the dialogue of the songs.
Yeah.
So I started
interfering with your story.
Right.
Yeah. I hear you. That's what I play. Mostly jazz. Instrumentals.
Right.
Yeah.
So my taste in jazz and classical has become much more refined.
Yeah.
Right? So now when I put on things that I loved, like Toad the Wet Sprocket, which is this band, I have like 3 of their CDs. It's like really shallow to me.
Really? Yeah.
It's not as fulfilling
as
it used to be.
I hear you.
Because it's like this surface music. It doesn't have...
This should be part of our thing.
What thing?
What you're saying now, all that stuff.
Oh, it's being recorded?
Okay. Can you throw it around a different place in the thing?
Why should I?
Well, I don't know.
We can start, like, right now.
Okay, cool.
I can trim it up. I do trim things up a little bit.
Okay.
Wait, let me make one point before we go into the subject matter, which is, what's the title of this podcast?
Just on
outlining.
Outlining.
Your definition of outlining. The
one that counts. The one that works.
The less Edgerton method.
It's not my method. I took it from somebody whose name I can't remember.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. It was in a writing book. I have thousands of writing books. Well, not thousands, but I have hundreds of them.
Well, that's a good quiz for the podcast listener. Please submit your... If you know where this is. I can write that in the description.
It was a good book, and I remember that. But when I did that, created the stuff on it, I did it from memory. I couldn't remember who it was.
Outlining. Who's the source? Somebody probably...
Yeah, sure. Well, it has to be older than 21.
Oh, before we get into outlining.
Yeah.
This observation I made about... so the letters, for whatever reason, I have this list of the greatest war movies of all time, and the one that I hadn't seen is the Letters from Iwo Jima, which is Clint Eastwood movie, produced by Steven Spielberg, whatever. It was a big... When it came out, people was like, that's a really great movie.
Yeah.
But I never saw it. So, just to see... I like to see, especially the beginning, how movies begin. How they hook you.
Yeah, the way it used to be, a big panorama, and then it narrows down. And
right.
All that shit.
Yeah, that's the old way.
Yeah.
But this is Clint Eastwood, who's like a master director, right? Yeah. So, I started watching it, and right away, of course, I'm getting hooked by the way he begins it, right? Yeah. But it's a movie.
Right.
And I'm sitting down, clicking it on, and ready to sit there and watch it, right?
Right.
And I can see, because I had like the training, what he's doing as he's doing it.
Sure.
Right? So, but it's like you say about the, what'd you say, Marshall McLuhan?
Yeah.
about the act that when you're reading,
the message is the medium is the message.
You're actively engaged in the reading. You're a participant. You're...
If it's cool media.
Whereas it's cool and hot media. So it's cool media where I'm just watching it. I'm not really... Even though it's great and I was being...
And I always get the two mixed up anymore. Because I think I get them mixed wrong, backwards.
Oh, okay.
I used to think cool media was where only one sense is involved.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it is, I think.
Okay.
Because you have to bring something of yourself to it then.
Right.
The cool media would be a newspaper, a radio.
Uh-huh.
Hot media would be more than one sense, like a movie.
Okay.
Books are cool. I may have those totally backwards, but anyway.
But there's I'm the way it's paced, it's really methodical. It's really kind of slow paced. It's engaging because of the things that are happening.
Right.
Like there's these guys in modern day garb digging they're on Iwo Jima in this cave, and they're digging remains of the battle of Japanese soldiers, and then it cuts to guys digging trenches in the sands of Iwo Jima, and these two guys complaining about it.
Sure.
And it's like there's no inciting incident. It's just flowing. Yeah, it's just flowing into this and telling the story. Right? It doesn't need to, because as the viewer, you're sitting there passive. You don't have to engage. You don't have to imagine.
That's a hot media then. Things are done for you.
Right. It's telling you, it's showing you,
it's more than one sense. And it is. Movies are always more than one sense.
It's the visual and the hearing.
The 30-foot screen. The enormity of it.
Well, I'm watching it on a computer screen.
Well, yeah, but that's what it's designed for.
Yeah, and it's designed, and I darken the room. If I can, I darken the room. Because you become immersed. But you don't have to participate. You don't have to imagine. It's laid out for you. Especially somebody like Clint Eastwood, who's he's hiring the best set director. He's looking through the lens and saying, we need this thing placed over here. There's a whole communication in the visual realm.
Okay.
But it was just interesting because it's really good. I could tell it's really engaging, and it's brought me into this thing that's happening, and I could see all the setup. It's totally nicely setting up. These guys are probably going to die a horrible death or whatever. And showing the layout of the beach, and I know from the history of that battle, about the beach and the significance of the mountain and whatever. So all those visual cues are being placed, nicely, just like little visual cues so that people who haven't read about the volcanic island where nothing grew, it's and through dialogue and through pictures, you're getting that information.
Sure.
Whereas in the book, say it's like the book about that, it's missing the who is the protagonist, because there's the general and there's the private. They're two kind of, so far it seems they're both on equal footing. But they can do that.
Yeah, you can in a movie.
Right.
Because the audience doesn't have to do anything. They don't have to bring anything to it.
And they don't expect to bring anything to it. They're not going to put the book down and fall asleep. But yeah, anyway, that's an observation.
Yeah, I hear you. But you got to do more work in a novel.
If you were writing that movie, it would be boring. If it was
done that way.
Yeah.
But you can. There's a lot forgiven with a 30-foot screen,
Right.
beautiful actors, makeup, all that shit, action going on, physical action. Yeah, makes a difference.
They actually get lazy in movie making. That's the difference between like a great movie and a not so great movie.
I believe you.
Like I tell you my Die Hard theory. Die Hard was a big hit movie,
Right.
and then they made
Bruce Willis.
It spawned a whole bunch of other movies that had the same kind of action.
Yeah.
But what sets Die Hard apart is not the action. It's that right from the get-go, it's a guy trying to get back with his wife.
Yeah.
That's in the
It's
first
the story.
scene. That's the story. That's the first scene. He loves his wife. He wants to get back with her.
Mm-hmm.
And
he's kept from it.
He's kept from her.
That's his problem.
Right.
Yeah.
And then he doesn't even. He's not just going against bad guys. The bad guys he's going against, Bruce Willis kills the brother of the leader of the bad guys early on. And he gets a walkie-talkie and he's talking to them.
Mm-hmm.
But it's that personal thing of, it's not just he's fighting bad guys. Yeah. He killed the bad guy's brother. So it's this other personal kind of personalization of the action. And then there's the buddy outside. That's kind of another thing. That's not
the black guy?
Yeah, the cop
black
outside.
Cop, yeah.
That's not as important to the core of the story. The core of the story being this very personal thing that people can relate to on some level, on like a personal level, trying to get back with your girlfriend, whatever. You know, so when you make a movie and it's just like a guy going against bad guys and there's a lot of explosions, it's not going to work as well.
That's what Mary calls chasey fighty movies.
Right.
She hates them.
I mean, they're fun, but
yeah,
they don't become big hits.
It's all production value on the screen.
Right. And that doesn't... I mean, it'll be... I guess if they promote it right, it'll be okay. But anyway.
Remember when in our first one we talked about character descriptions and stuff?
Not really.
Well, remember I said I don't describe my characters and all that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I just came upon a Mamet quote from his book, Writing in Restaurants.
Uh-huh.
And he says, when we are told that a handsome prince went into a wood, we realize that we are that handsome prince. As soon as the prince is characterized, a handsome blonde prince with a twinkle in his eye and just the hint of a mustache on his upper lip, and if we lack that color, hair, twinkle, and so on, we say, what an interesting prince. Of course, he is unlike anyone I know, and we begin to listen to the story as a critic rather than as a participant. That's awesome. The whole difference.
Right, that's great. Yeah.
See, that makes sense, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
So I didn't know why I did. My instincts just told me, don't describe people.
Right, right.
People furnish their own.
I have that book.
Do you? Yeah. I do too, right over here. You sure you don't have mine? But anyway.
That book is full of great stuff.
Yeah, it is. That's when he went conservative, too.
Huge fan. I drove him. I met him.
Did you? Well, he's been a hero of mine forever.
I was too intimidated.
Even when he was an idiot and a liberal.
I know where he hangs out in Santa Monica.
Oh.
A friend told me. He's like, if you want to meet him, just go to this coffee shop. He's there all the time.
Writing?
I don't know. Hanging out, drinking coffee.
Probably, yeah.
He lives like right around the block. Or he has a house. I mean, I don't know where he lives full time.
He's not in Chicago anymore?
No. I don't know. I mean,
he lived in Chicago for a long time.
He's from Chicago, right?
Yeah. And then he lived in New York for a while because he was doing plays and shit.
Yeah, I mean...
I didn't even know he was on the West Coast.
Yeah, I mean... He might have a house in all three places.
Probably does, yeah. It's like my friend Tom Rao in Scottsdale.
Uh-huh.
He lived in Cave Creek, very ritzy. Cave Creek is a gated community that has something like 16 golf courses.
In Indiana?
No, Arizona.
Oh, okay.
16 golf courses in one community in Arizona means that's serious freaking money.
Right.
Just the water costs a fortune.
Right.
But anyway, he had a neighbor across the street from him. He says, I've never seen her. And they had lived there at the time 5 years. He said, I think she shows up once a year or something, but I never, for a couple of days. He says, she's got homes all over the world. But he was in high cotton, and he still is.
Right.
But it's hard to imagine people like that, isn't it? If you're not one of them.
I mean, I don't know. I don't...
I guess they're not losing anything because the house is appreciating, so it's an investment. So, but
I mean, if you were at the $1 billion, having $1 million house is no big deal.
well, this is a $4 million house, but still, and that was
Even then,
15 years ago,
I mean, I think,
20 years ago.
I mean, I had the dream of having. You don't think about this much anymore, but of
What are your
having
book hits?
what?
What are your book hits? Then you can pick the dream back up.
It's funny. I don't think much about all that stuff anymore. I mean, I think I'm so focused on making money,
Yeah.
getting a job, and but I made a discovery when we were driving somewhere, me and you.
Uh-huh.
It's like one of those things. I remember where exactly we were in the car in the Coliseum, and I was like, I've like tried like every kind of thing, get rich scheme, technique, since like forever, 30 years now. But I've always done what I wanted to do in my life.
Yeah.
I've always done what I wanted to do.
Sure.
And then I realized the irony of that is that I wanted to make millions of dollars so I could do what I want to do.
But you're already doing what you
But I didn't need to make $1 million.
That is a great insight.
You know?
Yeah.
I was like, oh my God. Fuck, that's funny. That's funny as shit.
Yep.
It's like chasing my fucking tail.
And you had it in your mouth all along. Okay, so you want to get to the meat of this outlining?
Okay.
Okay.
I may cut that part out.
What part?
I
Your
mean,
dream? Yeah, leave it in.
Yeah.
Why not?
And I realized doing the edit on the podcast 2, part 3, listening to it, we didn't just talk about protagonists and antagonists, but we talked about rattlesnakes, and Thelma and Louise, and On the Waterfront, and some putting that stuff in the description.
That's what we describe in our right up to the podcast. Talk about a lot of shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what the hell?
And
I put it in the description. So it's going to be a neat description, like when we get on YouTube.
Cool.
And wherever else.
Yeah. So you going to go with YouTube and not the other ones in?
No, we'll do everyone.
Do them all. Yeah.
That's what, and then we'll have the idea is to eventually have live stuff.
Yeah.
Where you can answer questions on Facebook.
Yeah. Cool.
Or whatever, wherever.
Cool.
Anyway, to the meat of it.
Yeah.
What are we outlining? Oh, we did the Mamet quote. That's a great quote.
Yeah.
Outlining the story.
It explains it perfectly, doesn't it?
Yeah.
If it's just a prince, automatically you're the prince.
Right.
You give him a bit of a description and you're crediting. Now you're not.
Right.
You're not in the story anymore.
Right.
Just not.
It's weird. I've never described Corky. Because I was just, now I think more about my nephew in terms of physicality.
Yeah. Don't put it in.
Because he's 12.
Don't put it in.
I think.
Let the reader figure it out.
No, yeah, I think about me and what 13-year-olds do.
Yeah. The way I came to outlining was just in self-defense, because I was spending, like probably you and everybody else, spending all this time on stories I didn't outline. And then they'd peter out, a novel would peter out around page 60 to 80. And I'd be done. I couldn't go any further.
Right.
So I'd lay it aside, and then I'd get another great idea. I was doing, the smell of the rain on the road at dawn kind of shit. I was doing a poster for the movie. The smell of the rain on the road at dawn. The Blake Snyder thing.
I don't know.
Well, people talk about they've got an idea for a story.
Right.
Usually they got the movie poster. They've got a scene in their mind like the smell of the rain on the road at dawn.
Right.
That's what he calls it.
Okay.
And it's not a story.
Wait, who's Blake Snyder?
He wrote all the cat books.
The cat books?
Yeah. God, I've got them around here somewhere.
The things that the musical is based on?
The what?
Cats?
No, cat. He's a movie writer. He writes movies, or he's dead now. He's room temperature now, but he wrote movies and screenplays.
American Screenwriter.
Yeah, and Blake Snyder. And there are a whole series of books. They're real big. Just down on Blake Snyder.
Oh, Kill the Cat.
Yeah, the cat books. That was his thing. I read all these online blogs and shit and advice, to writers. And there seem to be these two schools that battle it out. The pantsers, right by the seat of their pants, and the plotters. The ones that plot a story out.
Right.
Well, as I think from being in the class, the kind of outline I have you guys do is totally different than that Roman numeral page after page thing.
Right.
It's 5 statements, 15 to 20 words. That's it. But it gives you a guideline. See, I always thought I was a pantser because I was so smart. I just figured out a story and went by the seat of my pants. They never worked out. And I found out later through hard experience, Hemingway said he was never a plotter. It lowered his manhood or something to plot something out. It took away his creativity or something. That was his bullshit idea about it. Right. What he did was he was an outliner, except his outlines are 100,000 words long.
Right.
And instead of an outline, he called them draft 1, draft 2, draft 18.
Oh.
That's all they were, is huge, long outlines
that
he changed. Well, to me, that seemed like a lot of bother and trouble for, very little reward for all the work he put into it. But when I came to, and I wish I could think of the name of the guy whose book I read, he showed me this very simple way of plotting. And it was the 15 to 20 word outline, 5 statements. The inciting incident is the first one. The next 3 are the culminations. Sorry, folks. Anyway, it's 5 statements. The first one is the inciting incident. That's statement number 1. That kicks off the entire book. It has to. That's what stories are all about today. There's trouble, and it shows when the trouble began, which is where contemporary stories need to start. Is when the trouble began.
Right.
Not the backstory, not before, nothing like that. Right. Just when the story begins. And the next 3 statements are the major moves in the book. And all novels have 3 major moves. When they don't necessarily plan to be that way, but they almost always end up that way. They can have dozens of other smaller moves, but there's always 3 major turns in a novel. And then the last one is the resolution, how it's resolved, and that's it. But if you've got that, you've got a roadmap. And as a teacher in a class, it helps me so much because I can tell immediately if the person's on the right track. If they draw an inciting incident in the outline, but they don't start out with that, I know right now they're not on the right track. They can't be. Right. Because that's the only place it should start, is when the trouble starts. Right. And that only starts with the inciting incident. Right. So it saves me a lot of time. It saves them a lot of time, too. Okay, so it just made sense to me. The problem is, and what I didn't realize for the longest time, was that the writing of a novel involves the processing and integration of large blocks of material, trivial bits of information. And as the length of my stories grew, so did the complexity. All of a sudden I was on page 13 and I suddenly remembered I couldn't have my character chase the bad guy because on page 2 I'd given him bronchial asthma. Shit like that. Right. So you can't. So it just saves an awful lot of time. I had to go back and cure the guy before I could let him chase the guy. What I didn't realize was something pretty obvious. A story like life, like the life it represents, is complex. Stories aren't built like a line of dominoes. It more resembles a web. And when you tug a bit harder on one of its many strands, the whole business vibrates and changes shape. not only did I have to remember the many details and their connections, I had to keep them in a logical order. It's virtually impossible without an outline.
Right.
You're just rewriting,
Right.
and then you finally give up because you run out of clever ideas.
Right.
Basically, and I've noticed that people write short stories. They usually peter out around page 6 to 8, and when they're writing a novel, they usually peter out between 60 and 80. Almost always, it's like a formula. You can count on it if they don't have an outline of some kind. Okay. And I managed to write a couple books like that, and looking back, I don't know how I did it, but I did. But I wasted an awful lot of time and had sloppier books than I have now. I used to have boxes of unfinished stories, and I bet you have too. Mm-hmm. And screenplays or whatever. Yeah. Because you simply didn't plan it.
Screenplays and plays.
Yeah. Because you didn't plan it. But if you'd had a 15-word outline, I bet you would have finished a lot more of those. Right. Because you would have thought it through. Right. But I never liked those outlines like Mrs. Gundy had, the Roman numeral things, page after page of Roman numerals and points and minor points and all this shit. If you do an outline like that, you've already written a story, but you haven't, and it's boring at that point. Right. But when you give yourself a broad outline, then you're still excited about it, I think. Right. Don't you? Yeah. And you can start spotting mistakes a lot quicker. Yeah. Like you have, obviously. Yeah.
It's funny, I think about the first thing I was working on about the two plumbers, and I had the attitude that this guy, his plumbing, the guy he works for has a heart attack, and that's like a big deal because he's in the hospital, he's about to die. Uh-huh. But you kept saying, so what? He's going to lose a job. So what? Yeah. So what?
It's not worthwhile.
Because it's not changing his life in a really dramatic fashion. Exactly. It's changing his life in a way, but you were trying to get me to now, how is it changing his world?
Yes.
Which I wasn't getting. It's dramatic, but it's not. How is it?
It's not. It's melodramatic, not dramatic.
What do you mean by that?
Melodramatic it's over the top drama. It's shootings and kidnappings and fights and all that bullshit. Right. That's not drama. That's melodrama.
Because it's so over the top. Yeah. It's like out of the world. It's like you're going out of the world with the
Exactly.
person. It has to be part of the person.
Yeah, a lot of times you'll say the word drama, and I know you don't mean that. You actually mean melodrama.
Okay. But it's funny because even in the podcast I was listening to, we touched on this, and I was trying to get you to give examples, because you're saying, oh, you got to have something happen, really hammer him. Yeah. And I was like, well, what do you mean? It's not like an action script. And you're like, it is. It's action all the time. And I was thinking,
you were thinking the lay term of action, for one thing.
Thinking what?
You were using the layman's term for action, right, instead of the literary term for action. Right. Just very different. Right. And that's the problem with our writing language. We adopt lay terms, but we don't show the meaning, the real meaning, in literary terms.
Right, but the thing is that in the plumber's life, it's like in Corky's life, this is an integral part of his life, is his bedwetting and his privacy of it. Sure. And then what turns it over is it becomes so public all at once in front of so many people, and it's hammered. It's not just one mention. It's like a mention, and then a mention, and then it's like in public a mention, exactly. And he's bringing attention to it.
It's big dealized.
And he's like tripping over himself in front of everybody, and everybody's laughing, already laughing, and laughing more, and laughing more, and laughing.
It took you about 6-7 weeks to get to that point, right? And now it's taken off. It's taken off.
Well, I'm understanding more of this. Yeah. And so in the plumber thing, it's like, what was I just thinking? It's like, so this is all integral part of Corky's world. Yeah. It's not just the bedwetting. Yeah. It's his whole life.
It's his whole personality, everything.
At 8th grade. Yeah. 8 years of Holy and Mary.
The important part of his life in his mind, anyway.
Yeah. Well, he's never, his unpleasantness for 8 years. Yeah. His parents, his family, not paying attention to him, not paying attention to not being aware of his hating his life, and this is like all being exposed, but not totally.
Yeah.
It's not totally exposed.
Can't be until he goes through the struggle.
It's interesting because I'm tying this together right now.
Yeah.
It's part of his life, and is not totally exposed, but he's getting frustrated.
And enough of it is exposed that he can't let this go ever until he resolves it.
Right. And he doesn't, it's weird because he doesn't even know what he's trying to resolve.
Right.
He thinks he knows.
Yeah.
I mean, surface-wise, he knows.
Yeah, that's surface
the
problem.
surface stuff.
But there's a story-worthy problem under it. It's very close to the same thing.
Right.
It's just deeper, more profound,
right.
whatever.
Right.
More universal.
That nobody can find out except for him.
Exactly. And he has to go through all this shit on his own.
Right.
To figure this out.
Right.
Exactly. That's the story.
So in the plumber thing, it's just like, all right, this guy's working as a plumber, and his partner, his boss, has a heart attack. So what?
Yeah.
How is that like?
Yeah, it's surface.
It would have to be
in real life. It's sad and everything, and a story has to be much bigger than that.
In reality, it's sad and it's drama, but it's not unless
if that's all there is in a story, it's melodrama. Then
there would have to be a deeper, there's maybe something behind in that life of that guy.
The realization, which is what the inciting incident does, that drives him to the realization that this is more than just a bad day at the office, or this is more than just a bad scene. This is This is really big in my life.
Right, in the protagonist's life.
Yep.
It can't be just he's suddenly in a bad situation.
Yeah.
The bad situation has to be significant.
Yes. That's why I said a while back, literature has to be bigger than real life, has to be better than real life.
Right.
It just does.
Right.
It has to be more logical.
Right.
Because real life is just not logical. It's just not.
Right.
It never will be. It's random. It's sporadic. It's all kinds of silly shit happens to change things.
Right.
But in a novel, things have to be. They have to make sense.
Right.
And they have to be bad.
Right. But that's where the drama comes from.
Yeah. And it's not melodrama at that point. It's drama.
It's like the mistake that people trying to remake Die Hard make, where they think the drama is from the explosions.
The melodrama is not.
And it's not. It's from this core guy trying to get back with his wife.
See, I think it's a bunch of people with a lot of money that they were lucky in making with movies probably, and didn't really understand movies. And so they said, oh yeah, what sold this movie was the helicopters and the jump. Yeah. And that wasn't it. That's part of it, but that's not it. It was getting to his wife.
Right. Right.
But they never understood that. They just thought, let's throw more bigger explosions.
Because a big part of movie making of Hollywood is marketing.
Yeah.
So you can market the shit out of something and make some money from it.
Well, too, in movies, the way I understand, correct me if I'm wrong, they get the financing for the movies before they ever shoot a day of principal photography because they sell foreign rights. And there's only three things that'll translate to other nationalities and languages. Right. It's helicopter explosions, sex, and more helicopter explosions.
That's one way of financing a film.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a big way.
Isn't that the basic way, the biggest way?
Yeah, that's the biggest. I mean, there's this Scorsese story about his first big movie, his kind of hit was...
Raging Bull?
No, way before that, with Robert De Niro, Mean Streets.
Oh, Mean Streets, yeah.
You ever see it?
Yeah.
So the story goes that he was looking for financing, and there was somebody who, I guess it had to do with farm rights, or some European guy who was going to give him the money to make it. He said, but you got to have some tits in there.
Yeah.
And in the movie, the character sleeps with the woman. She stands up, gets out of bed, and she's naked from the waist up.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't have any part of the story. There's nothing significant about that in
but
terms
you
of the
just made
story.
$20 million investment on that scene.
Right. So, but that got the movie made.
Yeah. Sure. Which gives us a little faith in Western civilization.
But so that
surviving.
feeds the production of crap movies.
Yeah. Exactly.
Or shallow movies.
Yeah.
Because they can do it. They can make money from it. Why not do it? But
if that's all you're about is making money, good for you. I don't think that's your dream. It's sure in my dream.
no, that's why I'm not in Hollywood.
Yeah.
part of the reason.
The other part is getting chased out on a rail and tarred and feathered, but we won't go into that.
The dark side.
Now, the three actions that in the outline are not the beginning or in development of an action. They're the result of a major action.
Okay.
Okay?
Wait, say that again?
They're not the beginning and development of a major action. They're the result of the major action that the character, that the protagonist took
Oh,
to resolve
okay.
the problem.
Okay.
That's what they grasp. I've used one of my own stories. It was a short story, a novel, and a screenplay, and I use the same outline in all of them, with vastly different lengths. And that's the genuine imitation plastic kidnapping. The first, and it's the same exact outline in all three forms.
Okay.
Even though one's like 18 pages, another one's like 300 and some pages, and another one was 100 pages.
Uh-huh.
Okay, same outline in all of them, and it works. The first one was Debt Endangers Pete. That's when he gets in trouble with the mafia. That's a serious problem. I mean, it's a surface problem, but it's bigger than that because it's threatening his life, everything.
Uh-huh.
So it is a surface problem, but it's bigger than
Right.
just a surface problem. And then the next three things are Tommy, his stupid partner, cons him into a kidnapping, and then the second action that fails is Pete and Tommy botch a kidnapping, and the third and last action is Pete escapes.
Okay.
And there's dozens, if not hundreds, of actions in there.
Right.
But those are the three major actions that turn the plot. Okay, and then the resolution, the third and final step, Act 3, Pete pays for a mistake. That I need to work on because I only had one result from that.
Okay.
And there should be a win, there should be a loss, and that's easy to fix. This is an outline that came up very early in this process.
Okay.
Okay. But anyway, that's not a hard thing to fix at all.
It's funny. There's a correlation to like the Sid Field 3-act structure,
Yeah, it is 3-act structure.
where those three steps are like the thing that spins the act into the next act.
Right.
Right.
Yep. And I buy 3-act to 5-act. I think that's just the standard. That's just the way we process story. We want to see beginning, middle, and end.
Right.
And when people depart from that, I don't think it works very well.
Well, I mean, in that 3-act structure, there's the end of the first, end of the second, and end of the third. And it's like there's also the inciting incident.
Yeah.
The beginning of the story. That's another thing.
Yeah.
And then there's the last 10 pages, which is how does it go? It's and you see it in the movies all the fucking time.
The climax, or
With like 10 minutes from the end, all hope is lost.
yeah,
And then it comes up and you get to the destination.
and if it's done right, you don't have any John Wayne cavalry rescues.
John Wayne what?
Cavalry rescues. Where at the last possible minute when all is lost, John Wayne rides up with the cavalry and saves the day.
Well, that's the Hollywood ending.
Yeah, that's bad endings. They don't even do that anymore in Hollywood, do they?
No, I don't think so.
Not too much.
It's too simple.
Yeah, it's too idiotic.
I mean, I don't watch the Marvel.
Yeah, well,
People are really into that stuff. I don't know.
they probably are. But that's not real storytelling. That's 12-year-olds writing for 12-year-olds, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, it's...
It's how many explosions, and how many helicopters, and how many guys swinging from a rope you can get.
Well, it's pumping up people's emotions and people going
on a surface level, not really deep.
No.
It's.
I was talking to somebody about music and how, what the hell, some piece of like pop music and how it really gets them excited. And it's like, yeah, that's what it's supposed to do. It's like get their heart pumping.
One of my teachers was a musician, classical musician, and she related all her writing exercise and everything to music. And she said it's like any musician that's got talent understands that you can play the Beaches song and get tears from girls at weddings.
Right.
She said that's cheap sentimentality. It's not earned or anything. It's bullshit. It's not true emotion.
Right.
But she says if you play a Brahms piece or a Beethoven so well, so superior and well, that will elicit true emotion because it's a quality piece played with quality.
Right.
And that earned it.
It like takes you to another place.
Yes. A higher place.
Right.
Yeah. And it's earned. It's not just some shit that gets a couple of surface tears.
That's like there's a famous article that Pat Metheny wrote about Kenny G.
Okay, God, Kenny G. I'm throwing up in my mouth right now.
He was frustrated that people were calling it jazz.
Or what?
People called it jazz. Pat Metheny,
jazz? No way. Yeah. Not real people didn't.
Pat Metheny kind of railed into him and how it's not. It's like cheap. It's cheap.
Yeah. Sure. It's sentimental-ish crap.
Cheap musical tricks that he just throws in there.
Yeah. Exactly. But anyway, that's the way she taught writing to me when she taught it. Right. And it made sense.
Right. What did she say?
She said they're
in terms of the writing, how it's
she said you could do the same thing in writing.
Okay.
You could come up with some cheap ass shit. Right. It's like the example I give a lot of times when they're showing melodrama in their stories, and I said the difference is, let's say you've got a woman that's got a 1.5-year-old child. It's an apple of her eye. It's her whole life, and they're out walking down the street one day, and a child breaks away from her and runs into this bus and gets squashed. The bad writer, the sentimental writer and all that shit, has the woman rush out, prostrate herself over the dead body, scream at God and all this shit and bawl and shit. Right. She said the really good writer simply has her slump to her knees and give the 1,000-yard stare the lion does, or the gazelle does when the lion cuts the baby cheetah, or the baby gazelle out and kills it.
Right.
That's true emotion. That's earned.
Right.
Less is more.
Right.
But that's the same thing in music.
Actually, you remind me of, I went to see this guy, Robert Fripp. You know who that is?
Robert who?
Robert Fripp.
How do you spell it? F-R-I-P-P?
Yeah.
Name's familiar, but I can't
He's a guitarist for King Crimson, and he's just a really great guitarist, you know.
Yeah, like a Serdovia or...
More rock and this progressive rock kind of guitarist.
Yeah, but he's really good.
Yeah, and I went to see him at House of Blues in L.A. It was just him. Frippertronics is like he's really into...
That's like Dylan. You know, Dylan sat on a stool by himself and didn't look the eye, just played. Just played his shit. Have you ever seen him?
Bob Dylan?
Yeah. In person.
I saw him a long time ago in 1978 when he had like a big band.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That must have been it. Well, yeah, but when he started... He would just take a stool out on the stage and sit there and play, not even look at the audience, just play all his music.
Really?
It was really good.
Well, Fripp is like into like technique and learn discovering. Yeah. He's like a real guitar player. Guitar player.
Yeah.
You know, he's like kind of geeky. But the one thing I remember him because he played and then he talked about stuff.
Sure.
And he said sometimes the hardest thing to play is nothing.
Yeah. You know what Miles Davis said?
What?
He said the best music isn't the notes you play, it's the notes you don't play.
Right, that's like the similar thing.
Yeah.
It's like...
the notes you leave out.
Bad musicians are just trying to fill space.
Yeah.
When space is actually part of the music.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's the same thing with describing in writing, in fiction writing. is that same kind of thing of
Yeah.
describing the character.
Yeah. Writers try to do too much because they're not sure what they're doing, and they overcompensate. They put too much shit in,
Right.
and it should be less.
Right.
So,
It's tricky.
yeah, it is. It takes a while to trust that you got a good enough story that it can stand on its own legs without embellishments.
Right.
Without you can kind of tell the beginning writer because they do way too much.
Right.
Okay. Back to the outline I did on kidnapping. First of all, it doesn't look like Mrs. Gundy's Roman numeral outline at all. It's 5 statements, 15 to 20, and the only words you count are verbs and nouns. You don't count the articles like the and all that kind of stuff. Just count the human nouns and verbs. Let's take the one of these. The first one, Tommy cons Pete into a kidnapping. This is after he's in debt and he's going to get killed. That action took about 4 pages. Tommy comes in a bar where Pete's hustling pool, draws him away from the huckleberry he's hustling to another bar where he lays out the scam to kidnap the head of the Cajun Mafia and amputate his hand and hold that for ransom. That is how I got to the outline of to the outcome of the outline point. That was the whole point of this story. I used to sell life insurance, and there's a saying in life insurance among life insurance salesmen that saying, and I can't remember what it is, about the $1 million on the kitchen table. Money's not real until the $1 million is on the kitchen table, and that's why in kidnappings in real life, somebody kidnaps a wife or a kid, especially a wife. They're not, and they tell them don't call the FBI. They don't until they get the money out and they dump it on the kitchen table, and it becomes real, and that's when they call the FBI. In real life, I'm dead serious, because they suddenly realize what $1 million is, and now they want their wife back, but they really do not want to lose that $1 million.
Right.
So that's when they call. I'm dead serious. That's human nature, and that's exactly what happens in kidnappings.
Yeah.
But I thought, if you weren't, they kidnapped the head of the Cajun Mafia. There's a bunch of mafias. There's Italian Mafia, and there's a Cajun Mafia. There's a Chinese Mafia. There's all kinds of mafias going on in New Orleans. Anyway, instead of kidnapping him, they amputate his hand and turn him loose and tell him he's got like 12 hours to get the money to him or to toss the hand. It just set itself up for comedy, real life, and everything.
What's the significance of his hand?
It's his hand. It's the thing he whips his trouser worm with. He picks his nose with. It's personal. It's worth $1 million to him to get that hand back. Where his wife, yeah, he hopes he gets her back.
But he's not going to ever...
But he's not going to call the FBI to get his hand back because he's not going to take any chances with that. Okay?
But he won't be able to use it again.
Yeah, he is. I researched this. You got about 12 hours where a surgeon can reattach it and it'll be fine.
Really? Did they say that?
Yeah.
And
what they do is, there are a couple of doofuses, especially Tommy. You haven't read the book, have you?
No.
You have to read it.
I read the beginning.
He takes the hand as a big long scene. It's my favorite scene I've ever written, where they amputate it and they both throw up and shit, and neither one can do. They finally get around to doing it, getting it off. They got the guy under chloroform. He comes to. They have to hit him again. Things get spilled. It's just a circus. Anyway, they finally get the hand off, and then they had a soldering iron Tommy brought to cauterize it with. It dropped on the floor when shit was going wrong and caught the rug on fire, and all I can smell is cats and shit like that, and fire trucks are coming down the street, so they grab the hand, throw it in a baggie, and book out the back door and go. They go to Tommy's girlfriend Wanda's house, and she's a piece of work.
Oh, wait, okay, I got to read this.
Yeah, you do. It's a brilliant movie.
Don't tell me anymore.
No,
Let's
anyway,
just make a point.
What happened was he gave it to Wanda to put in the freezer, and she threw it behind the veal cutlass but didn't burp it. And so when they finally do give it back, and they do after a lot of shit goes down, he can't reattach it because it's spoiled. I loved writing this thing.
Didn't burp it?
Yeah, he didn't burp it in a Ziploc bag. You got to burp that shit or it'll spoil.
Oh, get the air out.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And Wanda she's kind of a stupid ass housewife. She wasn't smart enough to burp it. So everything can go wrong, and this thing goes wrong. Basically, what this kind of outline does for me and for the writer is it forces you to think through your story.
Right.
Then you don't end up with the smell of the rain on the road at dawn.
Right.
A T-shirt you take on Letterman after you made the movie, sold the movie. That's your T-shirt. That's all that is.
Right.
That's not a story. It's nothing.
Right.
It's a vision you got.
Yeah.
That and 10 cents will get you not even need coffee anymore.
Oh, it's like when I would tell people, yeah, I'm writing screenplays. I'm a screenwriter. I got a great story. Yeah. And it's like
they got the vision of the
smell
smell of the rain on the road at dawn.
Yeah, I say, okay, well, your story in your head is not a movie.
No, it's not a story. It's not even a story.
No.
It's a
vision. You gotta write it out.
You got this melancholy vision of a drifter going down the road.
Or something big that happened in their life.
You got a Jack Reacher novel in mind.
Everybody has a big deal that happened in their life.
But that's when in class you've been there enough. You've seen new people come in, and that's all they got when they start. They don't realize that. But when you have to write an outline, you're kind of forced to come up with a story, then, aren't you?
Right.
You better think it through.
Right. Yeah, I know. I mean, the people in the class now, I don't know how they started. Like
they all started exactly like you did.
Mary, Rebecca, and Cheryl.
Mary's brilliant.
Yeah.
Rebecca, Cheryl, all their stories are great. None of them started out that way. I promise you.
It's funny with Ken. His story. I think he's the one that started out with the Chester the molester, the uncle.
Yeah, I think. I barely remember it.
I made the mistake of thinking it was like from his real... Maybe it is from his real life.
Yeah,
but
a lot of people do take from their own lives.
I mean, who knows?
Which is fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, he'll be back next week.
Good.
I think, if he's...
He's the guy in Tennessee, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Hi, Ken, if you're listening.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that. Okay. And a good question is, what if you see a better story or a way for the character to get from point A to point B that's different than your outline? Just draw up a new outline and you're off to the races.
Right.
That's all you got to do. I think you've already done that, haven't you?
A couple of times.
Yeah. And you still got a roadmap to Alaska. You can still get there.
And actually, I'm thinking about that statement that you said before about how the function of those three steps in the middle, or the end result.
It's what the character's already done to change things in a major way. And there's always 3 points in them. There can be dozens, even hundreds of small actions, but there's always 3 major ones.
So it's like, I'm thinking now...
See, that's what I was saying. When he fights the guy,
right?
That's way too soon.
Right, but the fight. It's not just. There's 2 fights. There's the fight at the pipeline, and then there's the when the guy thinks he's killed him. But the way I'm filling out the auditorium scene, it's pushing that back naturally, and I think I'm going to push it back more. I'm not. I don't think. I mean, maybe I could think of something else that happens, or something else happens between like the ice cream parlor and the walk to the pipeline and the pipeline. It's starting to push it back naturally because as I'm going through, I'm adding those internal thoughts, his awareness.
The only thing is to be careful when I'm listening to you, this is my thought, is that you don't want to have things happen to him.
Right.
They have to happen as a result of his actions.
Right, that's what I mean.
Otherwise, you got an episodic story and there's no market.
Right, no, and I'm actually thinking about that a lot. Like in the last edits, like I had him, instead of him just joining his family and then deciding to go with his friends, and Jerome coming over, inviting him to go to his friends, I have him come out of the auditorium, see his family, see his friends, and then initially he says, I'm going to go with my family, but then he decides, no, I'm going to go with my friends.
He's going to beard the lion.
Beard the lion?
Yeah, that's what you go when you confront something major. He's going to confront his the thing that made him embarrassed.
Yeah, I have to bring that up a little bit. But I didn't think about that.
Everything's got to be geared toward resolving his problem. That's got to be on his mind 24/7, no exception.
When he steps out of the lobby, He's beyond that moment. He says he called himself a chicken. He says, "I'm such a chicken." That's where he's developing. That's his surface solution.
That's not a solution. He just gave a definition to it.
What?
That's not a solution, though. That's just a definition of who he is now. He's realizing who he is.
Right.
But that's not a definite.
Yeah. It's
okay.
He's defining in his mind what his problem is.
Okay.
That's his surface idea of his
Except,
problem.
just be careful, because he should already, as a result of that inciting incident, that should already be full blown in his mind. Pretty much, he's got a very serious problem, one that he can't let go for 5 seconds until he resolves it.
Right. So from that, he's making a decision.
Yeah.
Initially, to go with his parents. I forget how I lay it out, but
yeah.
But I eliminated whatever, just like for choreography, I eliminated the sister and the younger one to make it more simple.
Yeah.
But I eliminated Jerome coming over because of the idea that he's making the decisions now.
Yeah.
He's pushing to go with his parents, and then he's not getting any satisfaction there, and he chooses to go.
Just make that clear. It's his decision.
Right.
Show him go through that process of changing his mind.
Yeah, and that's what's filling it out, is I have that extra layer that I can work with, which I didn't know.
That's okay.
I'm still kind of...
That's what it's all about, man, is going through the stages of assimilating all this stuff.
Right.
And then using it. You are one of the fastest learners I've ever worked with. You really are. I really think this book is going to be a really good book.
Well, it's going back to the reason why I looked you up, and I said, when I knew you were here, and that became part of the whole move to Fort Wayne. Is like, oh, I can be in this workshop. I could tell you could. The thing that I knew the thing that I was missing from, I dabbled in. I started like I could write a book but like just like when I got into playwriting. No, when I took filmmaking at Binghamton, it was this kind of non-narrative filmmaking where I didn't learn screenwriting, and I wanted
to more documentaries, that kind of thing.
No, non-narrative, meaning like a painting. So most paintings are about the frame and what's in the frame, how things are placed in the frame, the color of things in the frame. It's not telling a story, beginning, middle, and end.
Yeah.
It's giving you an experience.
It's giving you the smell of the rain on the road at dawn, which is legitimate in a painting.
Right.
Because it evokes an emotion.
Yeah.
And that's all it does.
You're communicating, like this quote I saw in a fellow student yearbook. She went to the high school, the big performing arts high school. And I was hanging out in the dorm room, and she had
in Hollywood or in New York?
In Binghamton.
Oh, okay.
And in her yearbook from graduating there, somebody wrote in it. You
broke it. You bought it.
They wrote. Art isn't masturbation; it's the communication of feelings.
That guy reads too much.
No, but it's great.
Yeah, it is.
Because it's like when people say, yeah, I'm a writer, and they're writing in their room their poetry, and they're not giving it to anybody, or they're playing bass. I remember hearing about this guy who was a great bass player. He played in his room.
But he never played to an audience.
No.
Or
it's
with
like,
a group.
What's the point of that?
Yeah.
But, so...
The point of that is your dreams don't get dashed. You still have hope that you have some talent. Whether you do or not, you don't know.
Right.
Some people don't want to face that.
But so the filmmaking that I studied was more about the experience of whatever. It's all about time. It's an interesting type of filmmaking because you're not just having the frame and the things in the frame. It's the added thing of time. how things move in the frame, in the audio of the visual, and it's more about the experience. You're not trying to tell a story, beginning, middle, and end. Mm-hmm. It's more about the experience, right? It's a non-narrative. Whereas Hollywood films and plays and books are narrative, where it's beginning, middle, and end.
Right.
So it's a different type of filmmaking.
Yeah.
But I wanted to make Hollywood films. I wanted to be a filmmaker because I went to movies and I wanted to make movies.
Sure.
So when I was done there, I knew the piece that I was missing was how to write a screenplay. So when I moved to LA, one of my goals was to go to UCLA Extension, which I found out about, and study screenwriting, that missing piece.
Who'd you study under?
I don't remember. I can probably look it up. But coming to Fort Wayne, it was like, I want to learn. I've wanted to know how to write a book for a long time, and like, there's two areas. Like, what does and through my screenwriting and playwriting learning, I learned that there's like rules of the market. There's rules of like if you write a 200-page, you can write a 200-page screenplay if you want.
Sure.
Nobody's gonna fucking read it.
Well, unless you're a big name or something, and they're looking for an Academy Award. It's that kind of script.
Like if you're Martin Scorsese with multiple awards.
That's what I'm saying, yeah.
And, but even he said, I saw him at NYU at an event speaking. And he said, for every like 3 hits he has, he can do something he wants to do.
Uh-huh.
Even him.
He's got to make money for the studio.
Right.
Yeah.
Even he has to play by the market rules.
Yeah.
In plays, you have to write, if it's a 1-minute play contest, or no, they have a 5-minute or 10-minute play contest, right?
Yeah.
It better be 10 pages, not 11, not 9. I mean, maybe 9, but not 20, not 15. It's a 10-minute play contest, right?
You know, I used to recommend a lot of people to my alma mater, Vermont, and they're always in top 1, 2, or 3 in the country when they name the best schools. They're always in the top 3
for creative writing.
Yeah,
right.
And if they're the top 3, then we're in trouble.
Okay,
but it's all about literary writing. But the advice I'd give people, I'd say when they'd want to apply, and I said, "Will, if you follow what I tell you to do this one little thing, it will make all the difference in the world." Because they want I forget the length of the project they want to read, because they all want to read something they created. It's either 20 or 30 pages. I said, do not ever give them 20 pages. Do not ever give them 30 pages. Give them, if it's the requirement is 20 pages, I said give them 16 or 17 pages.
Why?
It'll get you 50 points over everybody else. I've judged that shit. The last thing and people cheat on their margins. They cheat on everything. Slightly smaller type, they do all that shit. Like, we can't spot that shit. I'm done with them right away. They're too desperate.
Wow.
No, I'm done with them.
That's
and so
funny.
is anybody that does that.
Right.
And I said, give them less.
Right.
Always give them less. They will bless you. You will move to the top of their list, and I don't care. There can be things in there 10 times better. You'll get picked over them.
Right.
It's just people don't use their minds, their heads on anything.
Well,
I'm convinced that.
It's funny because I told you about, I was a reader intern for Dino De Laurentiis, and I had to do a critique and a synopsis and a 1-page.
For what, $50? Is that what they paid them?
For nothing.
For nothing.
I was doing it for the experience, yeah. I was working for Dino De Laurentiis. Come on.
I know, but people work for Warner Brothers and shit, the same thing, and they got $50 a script. And
but I never did it before.
Oh.
I was never a script reader before.
Oh, okay.
And I did a lot of work. That's why I stopped after 20, because I was like, all right, I'm done. I got the experience. But out of 20, and this is like scripts that got there by managers and agents, already went through.
So they're vetted.
Yeah, they're already vetted. Out of 20 scripts, 2 were any good. But
I believe it.
What I learned really quick was if there's like grammatical if there's grammar mistakes or misspellings,
all the scripts I've read are all like that.
On the first page,
yeah,
it's going to be a fucking bear to read.
Yeah,
it's going to be crap because they haven't fucking learned.
I know, but I've read a lot of scripts too, and they're the worst writers in the world as far as grammar and shit.
Right.
Screenwriters are horrible, capitalization, all that shit.
'Cause
Forget it.
They're not writers.
Well, you know shit.
They're just people that think, oh, if I just like buy a screenwriting program and write my great movie.
Oh, you should read the one I gave you. That was the semifinals in the Nichols, man. That's 8,000 of the best writers.
The Incredible Plastic Floating Hand.
Yeah, that's a good title. I like it.
Bukowski. Factotum.
Yeah.
The screenplay. In all my free time.
Read faster.
But so that my point was coming to Fort Wayne and that missing, like I started things that I thought I could make novels out of, but I didn't know. Number one, the more simple thing that I knew I wasn't really good at was how to put dialogue in. Where do you put dialogue, and how does that work? And I'm still learning now. You know, the breaking up of the paragraphs, like when. I mean, yeah. I think it's Mary. There's some Mary who
new speaker, new paragraph. That's basic.
Right. New speaker, new paragraph.
Yeah, that's simple.
Right, but then there's
exceptions, but
when there's like dialogue between two people, sometimes you have to clarify. Where do you say he said?
Not as much as you think.
But here and there, where there's like two people.
Once in a while, yeah.
Right, once in a while.
But you can give other kind of clues.
Right, which I was trying.
But what you don't want to do is tag every damn line with some good bit of action. That's horrible.
Right, I was trying to do that, and I was becoming unwieldy.
Yeah, it's horrible.
So I was like, oh, fuck. I was trying to avoid
Keep the exchanges brief before you insert some, but you get to a place where, you need to put some he said or she said in.
Right, I'm getting I'm just getting
it's
the
more
balance.
a matter of feel, and the more you do it, the better you get at it.
Right, and I'm working through that.
And the context, too.
Right.
If you got a male and female, it makes it easier, because you can use male and female references.
Right. Yeah, I'm learning. It's different than playwriting, because in screenwriting, because you just say the person's name.
Yeah, you got a tag up there. You got taglines. So
you don't need to say or drop hints or whatever. But there was the other
one thing I noticed too, and other people picked up on it because I saw that I read there too. Sometimes you go from past tense to present. You did a wouldn't, a would or something.
Right.
And he will. No, that's present tense.
I'm getting, that's another thing I'm learning.
And past tense is the present tense of fiction.
Right.
Present tense is not the present tense of fiction.
And the thing is, I read your book, Hooked.
Yeah. And
so I knew that I would get that from your workshop. I thought that book was amazing.
Thank you.
Well, I knew, you write, you read these books on writing, and I'm sure you can pick up a book and see like in the first page where they're...
Most of them are stealing from other writers. They just reworded it a little bit different. It's like Harry Crews gets plagiarized all the time. That bit that Elmer Leonard, and I admire the hell out of Elmer Leonard, and he didn't misrepresent himself. He just forgot to mention it. I think he did actually mention in his book that these are things he's picked up over the years. And he didn't attribute to the right fellow. He probably couldn't remember.
Right.
But one of the big ones that Harry Crews is, the guy that said this verse, he said, one of his secrets is, he says, I try to leave out the parts people skip.
Right.
And Elmer Leonard's got in his book. And it wasn't Elmer Leonard, it was
Harry Crews.
Harry Crews, yeah.
Right.
But
yeah, so then I knew, and I looked you up, and I said, oh my God, he's like gotten stuff published recently. Not like 30 years ago. So you know the marketplace, right? You know the rules of the marketplace.
Some of them. Most of them.
You know, what
there's so much shit going on. Nobody can know them all. And
Right.
there's so much, and things change now with Vanity Press, which they don't call Vanity Press anymore. They call it Independent. They're
Right.
Vanity Press. That's all they are.
Right.
They're bullshit. It's not publishing. It's typing. It's printing. Anyway, you don't know who's related to who owes who a favor.
Right.
I just found out something, my book deal, that I would have been a multi-millionaire if Random House would have gone ahead. I was going to come out #1 and all that shit.
Mm-hmm.
When you do that, you got a movie, and this would have been a good movie. Really good movie. It would have made a lot of money. But my new agent told me, I related the story to her, and she says, oh, there was a guy at St. Martin's just told my agent at the time when that deal fell through, and they'd already paid me $12.5 on it. He said, if Edgerton ever has anything at Random House doesn't want, send it to me. And I asked Jim, he said, I can't send it to him now. And I said, why? And he says, I just can't. And I asked my new agent, she said, oh, there's some shit going on you don't know about. He couldn't have. She never did tell me what it was, but there was something the insiders knew that I didn't know.
Well, it's funny because that happens in the movies all the time where actors will not work with other actors, and it's really personal.
Well, this wasn't what happened was Bertelsmann bought Random House.
And people, I mean, not just
And
actors,
they
but people...
They shit can a whole bunch of novels.
Yeah, that happens in filmmaking, too.
Yeah.
I mean, The Big Picture's about one of my favorite movies on movie making. The Big Picture
really?
with
Yeah.
Kevin Bacon from the late 80s. Have you ever seen it?
Oh,
it's great. It's great.
Yeah.
It's all about that bullshit.
Well, I got a whole list of people I'm going to kill when I get enough money to travel.
Are you done with the outline thing?
Yeah, I guess. Probably. You want to do some more on it? Why don't you read your outline?
I don't have this my outline.
In your notebook, isn't it?
No.
No? Okay. Well, I've got it on one of your things here, but do you want to look at
I'm
it?
definitely going to look. I'm definitely going to do it. Take a look at it again, like tonight.
I can pull it up if you want.
Yeah, why not?
Okay.
I was going to question Mary's outline, but now that I'm more...
She's going to change her story,
Uh-huh.
and she wants to use that thing, and try and tell her, no, don't do that. You don't want to let go of the other entirely. She wants to do the horse story now, but she still wants to keep their beginning in there and working around it. I try and tell her it won't work, but she'll learn. Sometimes people fall in love with shit. They work so hard for it, they don't want to give it up.
Yeah, I know. I got over that very early.
Yeah. I have to go to the site.
That's why the way I save things.
No, I
just
don't.
save versions.
Yeah.
I mean, actually, at the end of the main document I'm working on, there's like big chunks of writing that I just put down there because I thought it was good.
Yeah.
But it's not part of the story anymore. That's how I learned how to get over that. I save it.
Yeah. Then it's never lost.
And then I never look at it again.
What are we on? We're on, here you go. The list. Corky shamed in public. Yeah. Development. Corky escapes to a new group of friends. Corky tries to prove himself but fails. Corky accepts his worthlessness. Resolution. Cork finds true worth but loses all his new friends. That's pretty good basic outline.
Yeah, but see, I wasn't thinking of the end, like the three parts in the middle, the end of a result of something.
That thing I did on outlining, all that stuff came from like 20 years ago, and I get it mixed up now in my mind. So I'm probably misleading people. I went back to the
original
paper I did
So let me see. So Corky escapes to a new group of friends. So that's not really the end of. That's like see, it's like, what was it? Sequels.
This one.
That's like a sequel. It's not a scene.
Yeah.
It's not the end of a scene.
Right. Well, it does have to be the end of a scene, but the end of an action. Corky accepts his worthlessness. That's kind of meaningless. It doesn't say anything. That's mumble.
Well, that's the commit suicide. Tries to commit suicide. That's where I cut it down from.
Okay, that was a definite action, but this accepts his worthlessness. That doesn't say anything.
Yeah, that's his internal. That's what.
But it doesn't say anything.
It's better to put down Corky tries to commit suicide. Period.
That'd be good. That'd be better. It's more precise.
But I felt like I'm leaving out what's the motivation.
See, after a while, if I sense if I see you're on the right track, I don't go. I don't want to keep beating you up over it.
No, it's for me.
Yeah.
Just to clarify what.
Yeah.
But now that I know that's the end of the sequence, it's like the end is him trying to commit suicide.
It's the end of a major action.
Right.
One of the 3 major actions that are in every novel.
Right.
It's what happened.
He fails at committing suicide.
Good. You should fail on all of them except the last one. And see, Cork finds true worth but loses all his new friends. Well, that doesn't mean anything either. Finds his true worth. What does that mean? Need a bona fide, definite action. See, shamed in public, that's a definite action.
Right.
Okay. Escapes to a new group of friends, that's kind of vague. And tries to prove himself but fails, that says absolutely nothing.
Right.
And accepts his worthlessness. See, those are all words that they're too vague. They're not precise, and they don't give us a precise action.
They're kind of the underneath of what happens.
Yeah, but we want not the underneath. We want to know what happened.
Right.
That failed.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, it'd be a great idea if you could rewrite that.
Yeah. No, I will.
I just won't keep. Once I get a good inciting incident, and the rest looks pretty good. I say, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. No.
Because otherwise, we'd be here forever.
I didn't understand the end. The end. I mean, it makes much more sense to me, and because I know about the Sid Fields, the end of the act. How do you know it's the end of the act? You know it's the end of the act because a big thing happens that changes the world.
Yeah. That's what these 3 things are.
And spins it into the beginning of the next act.
And I guarantee in every good novel, I should always preface that, not every novel, every good novel, there's always 3 main actions that fail.
Right.
Always. There's probably at least dozens and dozens of other smaller actions.
Oh, it's so much more useful now. I can see why it's so useful.
What?
The outline.
Yeah.
Because it's like...
See, if I didn't have an outline, I'd have people going for 80 pages and it might look like a story, but it's not. If I don't see that in their outline, I know immediately they don't have a story.
Right.
They just don't. Why waste their time and my time?
Yeah. And it leaves the room for the creativity.
Yeah.
I was in the 90s when I was like screenwriting and then, learned screenwriting at UCLA, and then I was learning playwriting and moving arts. And when I got into playwriting, so I felt like at UCLA, so I was learning the Sid Field 3-act structure, and I had this story that I wrote because I told you about this guy who told me, just write 20 minutes a day. This guy that had an option deal at Fox. I met him on a set, and he's like, just
he had an option. He hadn't done a movie yet?
Yeah, I don't know what happened to him.
That's not much for credit, is it, an option?
No, it means they've optioned the script.
But they haven't made anything.
No, they optioned the script to, it's like optioning a house. You might buy it.
And you probably won't.
No, well, you pay somebody for options.
Yes. Oh, okay.
You lay money down.
So it's bona fide.
Yeah.
Unless they just bought it for $1.
Well, they if it's Fox, they pay people for their options.
I'm kidding. Oh.
But
what the hell?
They
it's not the 4th of July. I hate this. I hate the 4th of July.
Oh, so for like the 2 or 3 years I was at so I wrote this story, Jimmy Binder. It was just a narrative.
Oh, there was rumors around the halls about that.
It was just a narrative. It was just a story. I was just writing this happened, that happened, about this guy. And then I brought that to the screenwriting class, and I was making a screenplay following all the rules, these highly structured rules. And then after I took all these classes, and then I started learning playwriting, the playwriting workshops, I didn't use it. It was like playwriting, it was freeing.
Yeah.
because anything can happen on a stage.
Yeah.
I mean, it's weird because it's like, because the audience of a play, if you put red paper mache in front of a light being blown by a fan, people will accept that could be fire. If the character says, "Oh, let's get warmed by the fire," and that's like the fire on the stage, it's acceptable, right? So you can kind of do almost anything in a play, right? And I just started with a theme, and because I told you about Jean-Paul Sartre and No Exit, and how I like the idea of three very different people being stuck in a room together.
Yeah.
And how do they deal with that? And that ties into my reason that I came up why it was not wasting my time to be a playwright, was because if somebody could come to the theater and leave the theater thinking my life ain't so bad, that's you're making the world better, right?
Okay, sure.
So I would just start out with the theme and a setting, like a workplace room or a apartment or whatever, where very different people were in that place together. And how they dealt with each other in these situations.
Okay.
That was it. I didn't work from an outline.
Yeah.
I was just like, what happens next? And what happens next? Considering these characters.
It's episodic.
Right.
And the protagonist wasn't necessarily in charge of his life.
No.
Or his actions or anything.
No, it wasn't about him.
It was just scenes would happen.
Right. Just
interesting scenes.
Right. Right.
I don't think I'd work in a play either, would it? If that's all you had.
People enjoyed them.
Did they pay money for them? That's
a couple of times. The short plays.
Jack, it's me.
The short plays.
Yeah.
The two. Let me see. The one in New York. What was
so
the
they
thing
would pay $29.95 for the short ones.
No, I never had a big production. That's why I'm here.
Don't be modest, man. You have no reason.
No, I don't know. But then
I'm just busting your chops.
I felt like bringing the Jimmy Binder story and forcing it into this structure ruined the story, right? And so I was like really against.
I'm not going to say right.
I was really against outlines, right?
Sure.
And then.
But you're thinking of Mrs. Gundy, Roman numeral
right.
1.
Right.
He did this. He did that.
Right.
He looks like this.
Right.
He takes the shit over here.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
But screenwriting rules.
Yeah.
Act 1, inciting incident, 30 pages. It's 90-page script. First 30 pages is the first act. Second act is 60 pages. Third act is 30 pages. Forcing it into that structure.
And there are some hit movies out, really good movies. I don't follow that.
Right. So then I learned in the way, like TV writers write fast, is they use outlines.
12-minute sections.
Is they use outlines. They outline everything. And then somebody made or I read it, or somebody made the point to me that, because I was like, you're not, because a lot of the writing, the good stuff that I got was like, I was in the zone, right?
Okay, yeah.
And it flowed, and it just came from, I didn't think, oh, this would be a good thing if I did that, right?
Okay, yeah.
But you could still have an outline and be flexible.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's okay to do 20 steps, right?
Yeah.
But this is even better because it retains the essence of the story. You have the initial spine of the story, or the big parts of the story, those big steps.
Yeah.
But the way you get there, you don't have. So it leaves the freedom. But I mean, another thing that I'm learning that you keep talking about, I listened to in the last podcast I was editing, is that I'm the god of the story.
That's right, you are. You created the world. You can make the characters do anything you want to. Every third one can fly. It doesn't matter. It's you create.
If it makes sense,
they're all made up.
Wait, and if it makes sense in the world.
Yeah.
If it's logical.
Well, you can, if you're good enough, you can make anything logical. That's why we have sci-fi, and it works.
Right.
Because it's not something that's ever been done.
Like Corky can sprout wings and start flying.
That could be funny.
That could be funny, now that I think about it.
He didn't have much humor. Now maybe you should have him do that.
That was Lesson Jack on Writing Uncensored, Episode 5, Outlining.